It's now official that Thomas Partey will be leaving Arsenal. Yes, for long we've been waiting for that confirmation. Ever since Arsenal sent their contract offer to Thomas Partey and his camp, we've been waiting for their feedback, which never came eventually, and now it's come to our attention that he is officially set to leave Arsenal. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. Welcome back to the Football Tribe YouTube channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Thank you so much to our new subscribers, and thank you to those that are yet to subscribe. We much appreciated that you do come here and watch our content. So, Fabrizio Romano saying Thomas Partey set to leave Arsenal as free agent at the end of the month. Story from last week confirmed. Arsenal have already activated options to replace Thomas Partey with Nogard talks ongoing. So there you have it, Arsenal fans. Thomas Partey is now going to leave the club after 5 seasons because he did join the Gunners from Atletico Madrid in deal worth 50 million euros. The two parties could not agree, that's between Arsenal and Thomas, could not agree to new contract terms, and so he's chosen to walk away. Meanwhile, Arsenal are already looking at potential replacements for Thomas Partey / Jorginho. Of course, they've already completed a deal for Martin Zubimendi. We're still waiting for official announcements for that to come from the Arsenal camp. But in as far as Thomas Partey's wake of departure, Arsenal are moving quite quick, and they want to sign Christian Nogard, the 31-year-old Danish midfielder from Brentford. Now, I do not know I understand what Arsenal's school of thought is in this particular case, that they need a proven player as a replacement for Thomas Partey. They need somebody that is well acclimatized with the Premier League to its pace and physicality. But pound for pound, we can all agree that the two players are not a match. In terms of squad options or squad depth, of course, Christian Nogard becomes the replacement for Jorginho in terms of player personality, that player that you bring in for the short term to fill a gap because they need that backup player. While Martin Zubimendi is the longer term, who is the replacement for Thomas Partey. But in principle, in terms of playing style, in terms of personality, then Christian Nogard is the Thomas Partey, and essentially Martin Zubimendi is the Jorginho. That signals to a shift in perhaps how Mikel Arteta wants to play with his midfield, of course. Now, in Thomas Partey, they do lose a player that did deliver much, physically in that midfield, the turnovers, leading the progression ball forward, but also, more importantly, a versatile player that sometimes was played at right back. We've seen that multiple times, especially in the previous season, all in the absence of Ben White. Sometimes, even the season before that, he was played at right back. So we saw that flexibility. So that's the player they're going to miss, a player that is really, really good. But of course, his injury issues are bearing in mind that he's 32 and going forward, Arsenal perhaps figured it's too big a risk for them to hand him a long-term contract, but also improve his wages at the same time. When during the 2023-2024 season, he could only make 14 Premier League appearances because he was out for majority of the time through injury. Never mind that last season he was quite consistent, by the way, his availability making 35 Premier League appearances. But that notwithstanding, they've assessed their options and come to the conclusion that he can leave because they cannot meet his demands. So again, back to Christian Nogard. He is a good player, but I'm not solely convinced that he is an Arsenal type of player, that he is to the caliber of that kind of player. You see, being Premier League proven and is one thing, but also playing for a big team like Arsenal versus playing for a team like Brentford, no offense Brentford fans, is one and two are not the same thing, really. Because the pressure that comes with that top level is quite different. Remember, we are going into a season that we are calling very, very pivotal for the manager, Mikel Arteta. That if things do not happen the way we think they should be happening, then he could face the exit. That's if he doesn't win a major title. But of course, that's our opinion. Maybe as fans or as, analysts and people that do follow the game. Maybe as soon as Arteta's bosses have something entirely different, depending on how the season goes. But at least the largely passive conception around a consensus amongst Arsenal fans. I won't say majority because I do not speak for the majority, but I'll say a good number of them do have that sort of consensus that if we cannot get them over the line next season to win a major trophy, whether it's the Premier League or the UEFA Champions League, then it will be considered a failed season, and that perhaps the club ought to move away from Mikel Arteta. Now, bearing that in mind, that it's going to be that important a season, it's really, really a big risk. Getting rid of a player that is well suited to the Arsenal system. He's been there, he knows it. But then also, he's quite good, much better than any player that you're going to replace him with. It's a big risk for Mikel Arteta to say, Christian Nogard, please come in. Yes, we're going to pay for you cheaply because what is reported is a fee in the region of 11 million euros, which is essentially about 9 million pounds. We're going to pay for you to come and be the Jorginho in our squad. To be that backup player that if Martin Zubimendi is absent and we do not want to pull Declan Rice from his number 8 forward back into the deep holding midfield, then it is you that gets, the ball rolling. Unless, of course, Arsenal are saying that they will also return to the market and find a much longer term option, as the case was with Leandro Trossard. Because remember, initially they wanted to sign Mukalo Modric as a long-term, person on that right wing. Eventually, they ended up with Leandro Trossard. Now, that's where we are. Leandro Trossard is available, but they are looking for a Rodrigo Goes because they know that Leandro Trossard was a short-term fix. So Christian Nogard essentially is a short-term fix, as same with Jorginho, as Jorginho was. That's why I'm saying, in essence, in terms of squad building, he is a replacement for Jorginho. But in terms of player replacement, in terms of remote similarities, then he is Thomas Partey replacement. I hope I do make sense for you. But in terms of being the starter in that Thomas Partey role, it's going to be Martin Zubimendi. That's the expectation around Arsenal. And speaking about Christian Nogard, once again, this news during the day was broken by the usual suspect in David Ornstein. But he came back just about over an hour ago to say Arsenal close to an agreement with Brentford for Christian Nogard, deal not done but heading in that direction. After 11 million euro offer, Brentford midfielder wants Arsenal and main target as experienced and Premier League ready option amid Jorginho and Partey exits. Now, the players already agreed to personal terms with the clubs, with Arsenal, so that's not an issue. But Arsenal fans, do let me know what you think about, Christian Nogard coming in. Does he solve the problems that Arsenal are seeking to solve in the wake that Thomas Partey is going to leave the club? In the wake of that news, or do you think they should also be looking out for a replacement for an Albert Sambilo-Konga, who is a long term? And by that, of course, you've had the links with Lucien Mbuwemo. Now, okay, let's count Kepa done, Martin Zubimendi done, possibly Christian Nogard, maybe Arsenal, because given this amount of spending, I really, really think, and by the way, hope that Arsenal do go and solidify this, that they really go and spend majority of their transfer budget on a striker and a left winger as the primary targets. But even with that said, I still think they would need a number 10. They would need a number 10 and perhaps a right winger, but a number 10, a Martin Odegaard replacement. We've had a discussion about Ethan Nwaneri. I've given you my opinion about that. For those of you that are not sure, just check out the channel and look for those videos. You'll find them. So, if let's say Arsenal were to get, let's say Victor Gyökeres or Benjamin Sesko in addition to maybe Rodrigo, how would you rate Arsenal summer in addition to those 3 players that we've highlighted? But also go ahead and get Jorel Hato from Ajax, bearing in mind that Zinchenko is a primary target for AC Milan and potentially will leave the club by the end of the summer because he only has 1 year left to his contract and Arsenal have not entertained any contract extension talks whatsoever. So it's the writing is on the wall that he will be leaving the club. So Arsenal fans, do let me know what you think about that news and more. And by the way, speaking Arsenal, if you wanted really, really a very good player, Premier League proven, probably with the credence to play for a team like Arsenal, why didn't you go for Douglas Luiz at Juventus? You could get him also on a cheap, not at 10 million euros like Christian Nogard, but I mean, he's 27 years of age, Premier League proven, he did play for Aston Villa, good holding midfielder, but he does also go forward. He's quite progressive. Arsenal had interest in him before he stayed at Aston Villa and eventually made the move to Juventus in a 45 million euro deal. So I understand why it is Christian Nogard, but I get the thinking, or I feel Arsenal could have done better because those options are out there. And for me, Douglas Luiz would be high on that list as opposed to Christian Nogard. Not that I would have thought of him before, because when we spoke about potential Thomas Partey replacements, he wasn't even on my list. But it is what it is. Do let me know what you think, Arsenal fans. Let's move away from Arsenal and talk about Manchester United, because they are really, really close to agreeing a deal for Bryan Mbuwemo in a deal in the excess of £60 million from Brentford. That deal is expected to be closed at least before the end of this week. They do want to conclude that deal before Manchester United report for pre-season, which is on July the 7th. So they want to wrap things up really, really quickly on that deal. Already they've gotten in Matthias Cunha, and I'm there imagining that if it is going to be Matthias Cunha, Bryan Mbuwemo, that's on the sides, and then with a striker right down that spine, which could be maybe Victor Osimhen, maybe Victor Gyökeres, or Hugo Ekitike, whoever Manchester United may find ideal, or whether it is Moise Kean, who they've been linked with the move to, that's the striker at Fiorentina, regardless. Then that means that Manchester United will have to play with a single pivot player alongside Bruno Fernandes. If Ruben Amorim still wants to play a back three with his wing backs in Mazraoui and Eindhoven or Patrick Dow, But we all know that it hasn't really worked out well every time Bruno Fernandes has been played in that number 8 role. For those of you that want to hear more about my case, about what Manchester United, of why Manchester United need a number 8 player, go back and watch the video where, with the headline, Manchester United, the patient in ICU on the road to recovery. That video, I did highlight it well. Thank you guys for watching. Do not forget to subscribe and like the broadcast. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, and I'll see you next.